In his young days.
It's a photograph we made earlier, alright. But anyway, so continuing, we're talking about different beliefs last time we met. And basically everybody believes in some form of evolution, whether they are atheist or Christian, because basically the word itself has a meaning to unroll, to unfold, to change. More common use, the organic theory of evolution is as a special type of change. So we believe in change. God said it would be change. Everything after its kind, and there will be variation within the species. And so therefore we're quite happy with some aspects of using the word evolution, but because it's been hijacked by the evolutionary evolutionists, then we've got to be careful how we say things, because it always causes misunderstandings. So you need to clarify quite often what you're thinking of. So macroevolution is described as an evolution of one species out of another species, and thus from one cell plant or animal to man, through billions of transitional intermediates. The logical conclusion of believing macroevolution is God didn't make it, it just happened by chance, basically. So atheism is a natural result of this mechanistic look at the world. You're a man, but basically you're just an improved animal, is the end product, okay? You came from one small amoeba amongst a whole bunch of other stuff through your fish and your birds and everything else, and you end up somewhere out, you got man,
It's
okay?
magic.
It's just like magic. Matter of fact, well, no, I won't do that. That's something else. So, we're familiar with some aspects of it, obviously. And Christians do not believe in the evolution of one species out of another species. For example, a lion turning into an elephant. That's really what, at the end of the day, that's what they're asking you to do, okay? They're asking you to think of, what they like to talk about is the small variations. But what they really want you to understand from those small variations is those small variations are not the end. You can have big changes. And that's the problem. If they give them enough time. And that's why they need the billions of years.
What they call the transmutation of species.
Transmutation.
Graham, I think there's one word there, I would change it.
Yeah.
It's not the evolution of one species out of another, it's into another. It's a changing into.
Yeah, if you could.
That's really, so that's evolved. You know, the Swedish motor car, the Volvo,
yeah,
it's based on that word. E out of Volvo, I turn in the Latin. So evolution is the turning out into something else.
I can actually.
Oh, you lost it.
No, I haven't lost it.
Yeah, Volvo, I turn.
Yeah, Volvo's to do one species as well.
But how can something inanimate ever be animate? You know, like a spoon could never dream of being a soup ladle, and it would never grow.
Well, that's the whole point. A
Because
bicycle.
it started with something inanimate.
It starts off
But
with a
even the
bicycle.
spoon had to be made.
It starts off with a bicycle, then it decides to get a motor, becomes a motorbike. Then it decides it doesn't want two, it wants four, becomes a car.
Wait,
Oh, sorry, Graham, go
with the
on.
magic of modern science,
That's
what we're doing? Where's that? What am I doing? Magic of modern
Another
science.
glitch.
Yes, because, of course I saved it, so it's messed it up again. No, it hasn't messed it up. Just bear with me 2 seconds.
It's technology.
There we go.
I'm back again.
Yep. But you see, back with a difference. Evolution of one species.
It's the next page.
That's it. So I should have changed that one as well.
Yeah.
Right. Evolution of one species into another
That's
species.
right,
That's
yeah.
what I said.
That's right, yeah.
I thought I said that.
Yeah.
Alright, but anyway, so rather they believe, for example, from a dog species, you can breed a variation as far apart as a Jack Russell or a Great Dane.
That's right.
Now, I believe in that.
I
believe in that, okay? And any Christian can believe that. So we can use the word evolution in that context. We're talking about variation within a species.
Very.
But evolution, that kind of evolution, is talking about a dramatic change outside of a species.
Yeah.
Now they can do it today, but they're doing it in the laboratory, and they're paying a lot of money to pay people to play about with the genetics, to be able to produce different things. Matter of fact, they're working on a mammoth at the moment. Having said that, a mammoth is it's in the elephant family, so they're not going that far out with a mammoth. They've made live tags, a lion and a tiger, which technically, by the time that we're around, they're a bit further apart than they used to be.
Yeah.
But in the laboratory, they can make them. And they're working. They dug up a mammoth, and they took some of the DNA out of it, and they saw the difference between the old mammoth that died in the ice and the ice cap, and they saw a difference in an elephant, and they looked at the genetic thing we're going to look at later on, and they're adding the bits that's missing from a normal elephant to make it into a mammoth. They're adding that to a normal elephant, and they're hoping to produce a mammoth. They're working on that at the moment.
Well,
That's still the same family, really. An elephant mammoth. Yeah.
But when they cross a lion and a tiger, a tiger, I actually remember that when I was a boy.
Yeah.
It's always sterile.
Well, that's right. This is the end. This is why they can't breed from them,
No, that's right.
unless they play again with the genetics. But they're putting millions of pounds into scientific guys in white robes in order to make this happen naturally.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they're playing God technically, and then they're standing back and saying, "Look what's happened! Wow, isn't it amazing? Just happened by chance." No, it didn't. You've been playing for years to try and get that to work. Anyway, so the major difference is we believe in variation, whereas they believe in interspecies happening. MacRaven is a proven fact of science. We see it every day in the varieties of dogs, and also different kind of bills and finches. Now, one of the things that Darwin was really into a lot was when he saw the variation within finches, he really, thought, how can this happen? But no matter what variation you have, you still end up with a finch. And that was the point that they leave behind and move on to this next aspect. We can have lots of different things in different ways, but when you ask it to change into something else. Matter of fact, a lot of the stuff you read, depending who you read, they totally contradict each other. In 1996 and 98, there was a thesis, a paper put forward by a bunch of scientists that said there's no way that lizards can turn into birds, because when you look under a microscope at the feathers and the of a bird and the scales on a lizard, they're just totally different things completely. There's no way one is going to merge into the other. And yet, just 2010, on the TV, it was saying, "Oh, look at all these changes. We can change from here into a bird," and they're working on it, in a museum. The information is all, it's all contradictory, and the thing is, the popular stuff you get in the TV is only usually one side. But anyway.
It all knackers up with, because if they're saying they all start from one thing, millions of things must have to start to create all the different variations.
Well, they used to say that evolution started in different places at different times. They're actually pretty much abandoning that now because of the stuff we've done with blood and stuff like that. They've actually gone away from that. But there's obviously a lot of people out there still saying it, because quite often when you read about it in your science magazines and stuff like that, it's still a mix.
You don't hear much about the missing link these days, because they're not looking for change. They say that it came in leaps and bounds, sudden changes.
Well, I was a guy called Velikovsky about 1948. He put forward that, and he was laughed out. The last attempt. Because he used the word hopeful monsters. Sudden change, like if this is a bit crude, but obviously it's the idea behind it was, if two animals were mating, and then suddenly there was a lightning flash just at the point where they were getting together, it would be such an impact on the animals that actually the offspring would be something totally different. Hopeful monster, you see.
Well, they wouldn't belong to a symbol.
No, it would come close. It was surprising,
from the people who've seen.
Yes. Anyway, Genesis says God created great sea monsters, all the creatures that glide and teem the waters in their own species, winged birds in their own species, and God saw that it was good. So that's what we technically believe. And at the end of the day, you've got to make your choice. The theory of organic evolution supposes there's no God and that life couldn't be by chance. Hence, one cannot believe in organic evolution and still consistently believe in God, because they're parallel apart, they're poles apart. Though some people try to make that agreement. And here's a good word, however, it is axiomatic.
Oh.
It is obvious that for every effect there must first be a cause. The world itself exists, it's an effect. And the question is, what caused it? Is it matter or is it mind?
That's right.
We call God and mind God. We know that in the earth matter can cause nothing because unless it's acted upon by some other agency. And for a stupid application of that, a ball upon a level surface will not roll unless something causes it to roll. However, the nature of that which has been caused is such that we would be certain that the first cause is intellectual, it's mind.
And it won't roll uphill anyway.
And it wouldn't roll uphill either. That's true. Unless you're a big wind behind, then you get Romans.
Electric ray, it might.
Yes. Romans 1 verse 18 to 20 says, since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen by being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. A couple more of those. Although the things I see behind here are from either a science textbook or from Hubble space pictures themselves. Galaxies come in all shapes and sizes. The largest local galaxy, is M31, the Andromeda galaxy, and that's about 200,000 light years across, a diameter twice that of our own Milky Way. Far, far more massive than any member of the local cluster, though, is M87. It's not the M1, M87. It's a giant elliptical galaxy at the very heart of an area called the Virgo cluster. The question is, did the universe always exist? Now, this guy, Carl Sagan, he died in 1996, but during his life, it was him and a few other people, you know, Dr. Spock, Star Trek, well, these two guys are really good mates. And Dr. Spock really, in a lot of his work, he tries to laugh at God, if you like. He spends a lot of money, his own money, and a lot of time producing stuff that puts God in the back burner and tries to put forward humanist concepts and evolutionary concepts. But when you think about it, when you think about Star Wars, all them planets out there filled with all these weird creatures, you know, basically they're saying there must be something out there. They're still looking, you know, you never know. So he said the cosmos is all it is and ever was or ever will be. Alright, so the universe is all, it just happens, it's just there. And you don't need an intelligence, you don't need God, because it just is. Alright?
Take out the word cosmos and put God in there, you've got the right answer.
Well, it's interesting also when you look at science, a lot of stuff, if you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, you say, that's evolution at work. When you see exactly the same thing, you can say, that's God at work.
That's right.
You know, both the actual facts you're dealing with are the facts, but yet you can look at it from two totally different things. A guy called John D. Barrow, in the year 2000, in his book, Nothing, Vacuum, Voids, and the Latest Ideas About the Origin of the Universe. Interesting, the latest ideas about the origins of the universe. He says, at first the absence of a beginning appears to be an advantage to the scientific approach. There are no awkward starting conditions to deduce or to explain. Okay? He says, the fact that there was no beginning behind the Big Bang, or no mind to explain. You don't need to explain anything, you just accept it. He says that seems to be quite good, but he says once you start digging about it out, he says it's an illusion. We still have to explain why the universe took on particular properties, its rate of expansion, its density, so forth, in an infinite time, sometime in the past. Okay, He says it may sound like a good idea, just saying, you know, we don't need God. In the beginning was just the universe. He says, but really, we need to be able to explain why does the universe work the way it does. You can take a spaceship and you can send it off into there and say, in 50 years' time, we're going to get pictures of this satellite, or this planet, or this star, or whatever. How do you know? Because everything is actually working that way. You can actually calculate exactly where that, provided it doesn't break down because it's man-made, you can calculate exactly where that rocket's going to be able to take the pictures at the right time in the right place. And yet, in the other, we all use, well, what if it, in the old days, we used to use watches. You've got one.
Yeah.
So, you know, what do you set your watch by? Well, it used to be Greenwich Mean Time. But what do you set Greenwich Mean Time by? It's atomic. And there's like, they've got a new one, it's even finer than the atomic clock. These things just, they're losing something like a millisecond every year. And so we set our clocks by God's clock, basically. You know, we out there is far more controlled and timed and a lot more amazing than practically anything we make. Most of the stuff we make either runs slow, runs fast, or breaks down.
That is just it. That's eyewash, really.
Yes.
The hardest question for them to answer is, where do you begin?
Yeah.
And evolution can't begin.
Yeah.
You know, they can't.
Well, the most reasonable cause for a material universe. This is something. These laws, every scientist accepts. Every evolutionary scientist, Christian scientist, in the proper sense of the word, everybody. These are laws that are just there, and they permeate through everything. And yet, when you think about them and when you look at them, they actually contradict evolution all the way through. You know, first law of thermodynamics, it says basically in simple language, energy can be neither created or destroyed. It's called the conservation of energy. This power generation process and energy sources actually involve conversion of energy from one form to another, rather than the creation of new energy from nothing. Einstein's famous equation E equals mc squared. Energy is equal to matter. Matter, m times the square of a constant. Okay, forget about all that. Anyway, basically simply says, it's often called the law of the conservation of energy, and the law suggests that energy cannot be transferred from one system to another, or can be transferred from one system to another in many different forms. But every time it's transferred, it always loses something. It goes from the complex and breaks down. Or, for example, you put petrol in your car, and you drive along, and suddenly you're out of petrol. You think, where did all that petrol go? But if you feel the tires, or you feel your engine, the heat dissipated. You've also, hopefully, when you put your petrol in, you've actually travelled some distance. So all that energy to move you along the road has been used up. So if you could take that heat and put it back in a tank, that would be wonderful. But it just doesn't happen that way. You need a different kind of motor to use the heat and the waste. But even at the end of the day, you've got X amount of energy that you can't trap, you can't get back. And it's a constant loss. And that moves on to the second law as well. So energy can neither be created or destroyed. So you've got about the same amount of energy, but it goes from useful to useless. Coal, put it in the fire, burn it, you get ash, you had your heat out of it, and there's an X factor there that you can't put in a bottle because it's lost. You can't take this ash and then rebuild it back in the same amount of coal again because it just won't do it. It's changed its form, and it's changed from being useful to heat you up into doing something else. Well, you can use it in the path, cinders in the path to melt the snow in the winter time or something like that. So you've got another use out of it, but you can't put it back in the box. You can't put it back to that first use because it's changed its form from useful in that scenario into useless.
I've often wondered about sound.
Yep.
A sound is it ever lost or does it go somewhere? Sound. I
The
know
waves-
we'll
the
say
waves-
it's a
Sound waves are constant. Yeah.
Somebody says that it just, no matter what's happened, every sound is still moving somewhere.
That's right.
Yeah, well that's what I was
But
thinking.
there's more complex questions than that. Usually they ask you if a tree in a forest falls down and it comes down
Oh, yeah.
crash, there's nobody around to hear it.
It doesn't make a cut.
Does it make a crash? Or is it your ears that pick up the sound wave and turn it into that's a crash? You know.
It makes a crash.
I think
Yeah.
some working out that.
Well,
Makes a
you know,
crash.
I think it makes a
Good
crash
idea.
whether there's anybody around to hear it or not. But having said that, I mean, it's as a something that makes the wave, but you've also got to have a receptor
Yeah.
to be able to say that's a sound.
Von Braun, who was the German rocket scientist who helped the Americans with the atomic bomb, said, "Science knows of nothing that disappears forever."
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
The sound goes somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's like when you throw a rock in a big pond, you know, you get big waves, big ripples, but then the ripples slowly die down.
Yeah.
But they die down as far as you can see,
Yeah.
but if you had the right instrument, you'd see those waves are still going on.
I met a man in Scotland many years ago who was interested in this. He said, if we had the facility, every voice that's been sounded in this room is maybe in the wall somewhere, and you could hear the voice. You could hear things that were said ages ago because of the sound waves.
Yeah. 'Cause, I mean, if you walk through this room and then 8 hours later, if you had the right equipment, I could tell you exactly where you walked.
Yeah.
Because your walking has left an imprint on that floor. And
to do that.
yeah, I mean they do that kind of experiments all the time. So there's stuff that's left embedded, you know.
Yeah.
And if you just had the right sensor to pick it up.
Instruments.
It's like someone shouting the place, it echoes. It echoes, it goes on
Yeah,
and on
it
and
keeps
on.
on. Yeah, if you do it in a mountain, you can hear for miles. But just because you can't hear it, does it stop? You know, if it goes out of your distance range, does somebody else hear it? Or if you had the right instrumentation, could you pick up that wave? That voice thing. Anyway, so the second law of thermodynamics, you got the first law, energy can never be changed but it goes from. The second law describes what happens to it. Heat can never pass spontaneously from a colder to a hotter body. As a result of this fact, natural processes that involve energy transfer have only one real direction. And all natural processes ultimately become irreversible. That's why you put your coal in the fire, but next morning you can't put it back in the fire again because it's already burnt up into something different. You put your petrol in your tank, but you can't, after you've gone 300 miles, it's no longer in your tank, it's changed into something else. You know what I mean? So there's always that X factor you lose. And this denotes the end product is something called entropy. And that's something we all are familiar with, because I've got a few teeth missing, my eyes, I need glasses now, you know, it's entropy in action. And you build your house, you put a pane of glass in, and your frames begin to warp over time, you've got to repaint everything. Why do you have to repaint everything? Why can't you just paint once and that's it, you know? But over time, things break down. That's the law of entropy. Entropy is a measure of disorder, randomness of energy and matter in a system. Both energy and matter in the universe are becoming less useful as time goes on. Now, if you think of evolution, it says the opposite. Opposite says you can start off with chaos and you end up with a complex thing. These two laws are saying you start off with a complex thing, and whatever you do to it, it ends up less complex than it was before. You know, that's at the end of the day. So that law of dynamics is a different way I put it, and forget about that because it's too complicated, but okay. Anyway, it's all to do with heat and stuff. Alright. This guy says, second law is probably the most powerful piece of legislation in the physical world. It ultimately describes every process we have ever discovered. That goes Norman Geisler. And the final court, it is the final court of appeal in any dispute relating to action and procedures, whether they are naturally generated or man-inspired. So it should be the answer, and yet this second law of thermodynamics, first and second law, stops evolution in its tracks. But because, even though they know it, they don't apply it, so therefore they get away with it. So it draws a conclusion that in our universe there's an overall reduction in order, a loss of available energy that is measured as an increase in entropy. Everything falls apart eventually. Some of us quicker than others, okay? So the available stock of order is being exhausted. That's like a dying battery of a flashlight. Useful energy is being dissipated into entropy, after which none remains for us to use. For us to live in a universe in which the second law of thermodynamics holds, it must be a universe that has a starting point. So when all this is saying, if you're going from the complex and eventually everything breaks down, if the world exists and is slowly breaking down, it implies there must have been a point in time when the world came into existence in its best form in order for it to break down. There must have been a time when it was kind of pure energy, for the energy to be changed into, go from useful to useless. Now, one aspect I believe, though I'm open to thing, when you think about stuff like this, when God spoke in the beginning and he said, let there be a universe, then everything in the universe is from him, and therefore he must be, one aspect of his nature must be energy, pure energy, because everything's come from him. And everything, he started everything in motion, and it's very complex. So he's got to be some powerful energy source. You've got to have an energy source to be able to see all the stuff comes off that energy source. You know, there's a light up there. There must be an energy source feeding the light. We see it in the light. And it's amazing, isn't it? When you take a plug and socket it into the wall, why doesn't all the electricity just fall out? Put it back in. It's like water, isn't it? You know? If it was water and you took a tap off the wall, you'd be flooded out in no time. But with electricity, you take the plug out of the wall, and suddenly your light goes off. It stops flowing. One of the things we've seen, I think you've seen it, I'm not sure, but one of the things one of the guys says is the idea about electricity at the moment, the guy says, don't let anybody tell you they know what electricity is, because we still don't know. And the other factor about it is, instead of electricity, we think we plug something in, there must be instant, power there. He says, from what they can understand about it, it actually bumbles along like treacle. It slowly moves like treacle. You'd think it'd be instant and, He said it doesn't seem to work that way at all. It moves along like treacle. So you're seeing one dropping off the edge is giving you your light, if you like, but a whole bunch of treacle coming bumbling along behind it. I don't understand it.
I remember years ago, one of the scientists said the only thing we can say about the nature of light is that we're completely in the dark.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Matter of fact, because I'm dealing with this and working with it, often you think about things, obviously. And we talk about the speed of light and measuring stuff. And evolution says because this is so complex, it must have needed so much time for it to come about. So they talk about 14 billion years, 15 billion years, and so on and so forth, okay? But when you think about it, when you look at their understanding of the Big Bang and how it came about, in that first few minutes or seconds, if you like, of the Big Bang, all the concept of speed of light, time-wise, must have been set aside. Because they say so much happened in that first instant, millisecond, and the universe spread out so far and so fast in that first millisecond to the first minute, of time, when you look at the stuff, that must have happened faster than the speed of light.
Got to.
Also, if it happens faster than the speed of light, that means when they say this planet is 200 million light years away at the moment, if it had moved there in that first millisecond, half that distance, then really it's only half as old as they say it is. Because the first couple of milliseconds actually took it faster than the speed of light to maybe halfway where it is today. See what I mean? Well, and when you think about God, and you know, they say, well, you know, it's billions of years old. When you watch Downton Abbey, okay, you step back in time. They've got cars that were 1938, 1940. They've got a house 1938, 1940. They've got people wearing dresses just as they were in 19... So you step back in history. And you made that less than 10 years ago. But you're actually living in 1938. When you're watching it, you're watching 1938. Now, if God is... I think he's a bit better a director than some of these program makers. If God in the beginning built time into the universe, which I believe he did, then whatever you measure, and you can't measure it that way. You know, somebody seeing Downton for the first time, you know, if they woke up after being in a coma, and the first thing they saw was Downton Abbey on TV, in their room all by themselves, they'd think, I'm in 1938.
I was there.
And you were there, that's right. Because you were in that kind of service at that particular time. Yeah.
I was there.
So
Amazing.
what I'm saying is, if you build time into something and you had no other point of reference, you would actually think. I mean, Star Trek does the same thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's saying, where are we now? We're 2,000 years in the future, you know, and wow, we're there. But they made it in the last 15 years. But they built time into it. And we're so clever, we can build time into things, then we turn around and say, God can't do that. Doesn't add up, does it? If we, with our mini brains, can actually delude you into taking you to a different time dimension on your box and the corner, or your 3D. I was the first time I went to a 3D film. It was that film Pi. The little kid in the boat with a lion. You ever seen it advertised on TV? No, it's an Indian program. But I was sitting on this balcony seat, and with a 3D, I was looking at, I can't remember whether it was an alligator or something. It was literally 2 feet in front of my nose, and it looked real. You could see drops. You could see it raining, and it was raining right in front of me. But it wasn't. But it felt like it. I was in it.
But if we can, if I can record a program on a video recorder, something like that, and I can tomorrow I can see something that happened today. Why should we deny God the ability to see everything that's happened? Well, he's not bound by time.
That's right.
He's not limited by yesterday or tomorrow. Everything is fast. In my belief, everything is one constant present for God.
Yes, that's right. And that's the problem. But we would, you know, people who don't believe in God won't give God the same
credit.
Credit as they give us, who can make time stand still, or make the future happen.
That's it.
And we think, you know, that's really clever, these directors, and we're amazed by what they can do. And yet we'll look at the universe, we won't give God the same credit. It's just crazy, isn't it, really? But anyway, hopefully we'll get there in the end. How we do for time?
5 minutes.
Okay. It's good. Time built in. Cosmos, okay, that's what Carl Sagan said when he's put it there. So, did the universe always exist? Before 1947, that's what most evolutionary scientists said. The universe has always existed. And then, of course, Mr. Hoyle came along with Big Bang and said, no, there was a point in time when it banged. And that's where all the universe came from. But before he put forward that theory, all evolutionists believed that time, matter has always existed. And that's because the second law of thermodynamics, first and second law of thermodynamics says no. Because it's breaking down, it must have been a point where it came into existence. And that's where they then went to the Big Bang, because they needed something, needed something somewhere to be the first cause. And so they end up with that.
Excuse me, you said there's a point in time before the Big Bang. There wasn't time then, was there?
Well, this is what this is the problem they have. They haven't answered this question. Because we say in the beginning God, okay? Which implies that before the beginning, God existed. For the beginning, as we know it, to come into existence.
There's a chap called Fred Hoyle, a silly Yorkshireman, came up with the idea of that it all began with the Big Bang. 50 years ago, they rejected it. They've gone back to it again now.
That's
Because
the famous.
they have no other explanation.
Well, and it's interesting, if you actually read a lot of the stuff that's going on, the popular stuff on TV is saying the Big Bang is the thing. But there's actually other scientists who disagree with that. They actually, one of the Bible passages talks about the earth being laid out like a mantle, like a blanket. So it's like like that. The universe, like that. There are actually scientists who actually believe that instead of a Big Bang and everything emanating out from that in a circular motion, they're looking, they call stuff like red shifts and light and spectrums and stuff, but they actually think it looks more like what the Bible's talking about as like a mantle, like a curtain. So there's popular science, it's what you get in TV. Then there's the stuff that's going on in the real world at the cutting edge of evolutionary thought that have already thrown away a bunch of stuff we're looking at on TV. And actually they'll look down on some of the guys on TV because they think, well, we've stopped believing that ages ago. One guy, I think I may have a quote from him later on, but he said everything written before 1996, evolutionary speaking, he says needs to be discarded. Because the majority of it doesn't fit in with any stuff. And then, you know, talk about, anyway, we'll come to some of that in time, and then we'll stop. We'll stop at the end of this one. Did the universe self-cause itself? In order to self-cause itself, we would have to not exist to cause existence, and then exist in order to be caused at the same time. Alright?
Let's skip that one.
Alright, well, the thing is, the bottom of that says, this option is ruled out because there's actually laws that are recognised laws. It says, there's one law, it says that there's a law of non-contradiction. Two contradicting things can't be true in the same time and same space type of thing. Okay? And so it says, how can something that doesn't exist cause something to exist, and then, anyway, so it just gets confusing. We'll stop with that. Anyway, that's enough for you today. It blows your mind enough. Alright, because the next one, yeah.
The thing is, it takes more to believe that than to believe God.
At the end of the day, that's the real key. And there was a guy in America who was a prisoner in a jail, and he objected to these Christians and other people getting special times and special treatment. So he took his case to court, and the judge ruled that because he was an atheist, an evolutionist, he said just as much right to have a period of faith time as these others, because the judge said evolution is a faith. So actually in a statute, in a law statute in America, it actually says, looking at all the evidence, it says evolution, this type of stuff, is actually a faith.
Yes.
It's not a science.
On the basis of that, one fella complained that Christians can celebrate a special day, Christmas and Easter, that they have their own special days, and they didn't have one for their faith.
Oh.
The judge said, you do have one. He said that the psalmist says, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. We've got April Fool's Day.
What was coming, yes.
Yeah. It's the way he tells them, isn't it? Okay. Yeah.
We go and say about God being energy, you know, like it could be just something that caused the energy.
Well,
No,
the idea behind it, God himself, it's one of these weird things, difficult to explain. But for God to have the power to be able to create what he created in all its complexity, and also to be consistent with the laws of his creation, that energy can neither be created or destroyed. It's never the amount of energy you start off with is the amount of energy you finish with, but it just changes form. Ultimately, God must be more powerful than the energy that he's created. And therefore, one aspect of his being must be energy, pure energy.
But like he could have just created energy, thought of energy, and that's
Well,
it.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I take it he probably would have done that. No.
But this is they talk about a closed system and a closed universe and an open universe, and there's all sorts of stuff going on in between. But for the very fact that everything needs some sort of movement, and we talk about that movement as being the energy process, energy being changed. You use energy to get up in the morning, you use energy to run. Energy is behind practically everything we do. So therefore, one aspect of what God is and who God is must be a really powerful energy force to be able to have created all the energy that we see, to be able to use. But that's speculation, okay? Because God hasn't said his energy, but it's got to be in there as part of his being. Some people talk about pure thought, the energy of pure thought. Anyway, it's complex. We just don't know at that level. So we've got to go along with what he said is revealed of himself. But that's ultimately why God, the concept of God is such a tough one to understand, even though he's revealed himself through the Old Testament. That's why he stepped into humanity in Jesus, because with Jesus we can understand.
Right, and is that why God was able to say, I am?
He is.
That's
He
it.
is.
Yeah.
He exists. I mean, that's part of that concept.
Yeah.
But it's all that's airy-fairy. You know, it's weird stuff.
That's what we said at the beginning, when we first started off, was in this story. If it weren't for God in the first place, none of us in
None of us would be here.
None of us would be here in the first place.
Yeah. And so we're an expression of who he is. There's a real good book I read by a woman in the Church of England in the 1940s and 50s, and she was trying to help. She was asked to try and help the Church of England people to understand God and God's thought processes and who God is. Come to some sort of interaction with God as a real entity, if you like. And one of the illustrations that she uses is like an artist. When an artist paints a picture, does the picture only come into existence when the artist has actually got it on canvas? Or has the artist already in his mind painted the picture? He sees the whole picture.
Yeah.
And what you see on the wall or the canvas is only expression of what that is already complete in his mind. So God, in that sense, being a creator, his creation is already in his mind, and therefore could be said to exist before he actually then, in the physical creation, makes it plain for everybody to see.
So you say pure love is energy then?
It's certainly a force, and if we use the word energy, that might look, because you're using words, and there's a certain amount of the use of words which limits us. Because love is certainly an energy force. It's certainly a force for good, hopefully.
A powerful.
And so is hatred.
Powerful force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
No,
often
no,
thought
yeah.
about
Anyway.
I've often thought about that about an artist, because an artist actually sees it's not an ongoing process.
It's not something he imagines.
No, but
No,
he
because-
doesn't paint something and you think, oh, I'll put a dog in there.
Yeah.
But he had already thought the dog.
Yes. They say the great artists can see. I mean, the Sistine. I don't know how you can actually look at something like the Sistine Chapel and understand how somebody can actually get all that you know, they talk about getting it all in perspective, because you can only see it from the ground. You know, and he's working on these little bits up in the roof, and yet he must be able to see
Yes.
the finished article and know that this little bit is what it needs to be.
Constable painted what he saw.
Yes, it is.
Well, that's yes, but we're thinking of somebody having a picture in their mind, creating something in their mind,
Like
and
that
then putting
like
it.
Dewey with some of his pictures.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. But at what point does it become real? Is it real in his mind, or is it only real when it's seen on the canvas? The argument would be that it's real. So with God, his world is real in his mind before he. That's why he can see it all.
Oh.
Know what I mean?
I
Anyway,
know what.
that's what Frank, lead us to what a fact.